Alright. I hope you are sick to your teats with Age of Egg based content, because here is Age of Egg Alpha. I am amazed I got through all 6 chapters without someone coming along and pointing out I had forgotten to do the Alpha issue, or I had overlooked the 2 other tie-ins. I purposely did so because this is not listed as chapter 1 of the story. This isn't listed as a chapter at all, and I agree with that. This is a bonus, really. It is a teaser, it's a preview. It's a little more context, but above all else, it complicates the story by not following the internal logic of Age of Egg. With this one, you can suspend your disbelief and just allow this for what it is. But the other 2 tie-ins, which I didn't own and will not be buying no matter how many people request I review them, the other 2 tie-ins, they seriously did not get a memo about what the nature of Age of Egg was, and so they tell stories that take place outside of the bubble, even though nothing exists outside of the bubble. That is like one of the main plot points. They tell you pointless shaggy dog stories about what Spider-Man was up to in this reality. Do you want to know what Spider-Man was up to in Age of Egg? Nout, because he didn't exist. He wasn't involved. He was off in the real world, far away from the small pocket that was affected by the warp. Also, by the way, spoilers for Age of Egg, if I haven't already said that it was all an evil personality in the head of Dan Stevens warping a small section of reality. We have wraparounds for this story with a bunch of excellent men sat around a campfire, and this is alright until we start having really forced dialogue to instigate a flashback retelling one of the backstories of 4 main characters in the Age of Egg crossover. First, it is Cyclist, and the art is fucking dreadful. And this artist, he won a fucking Eisner. It is a sudden shift in style, and it doesn't match any of the other art in this issue or the rest of the Age of Egg crossover. And here is where the problems begin. This story, this doesn't matter. This didn't even happen within the parameters of Age of Egg. They were really only there for 7 days. Their reality was only that way for 7 days. And anything else was just falsehoods or imaginations. So this here is just imagined memories. And part of the plot of Age of Egg is that the small world that Dan Stevens built, it wasn't built that well, and there were problems and contradictions. So Gannon and offering up these backstories, all of these happen outside the bubble, which presents even more problems. These backstories, they shouldn't be cemented or defined because it contradicts the story and the reveals of the story. Also, Carrot Top is in it, and I hate Carrot Top. I really think he is one of the worst characters around. But he is yet another thing wrong. Carrot Top, he was not on the Excellent Men Island. Dan Stevens doesn't even know Carrot Top. Why is Carrot Top integrated into Cyclist's backstory? The main story, the main Age of Egg story, it actually did a really great job of the logic with the characters appearing. I pointed out several times that certain characters were not there, like Wolf's Girl or the Smurf, and they weren't there because they were not on the Excellent Men Island at the time of the event. The way to look at it is, I cannot remember if I said this in any of the reviews, but look at it as like a toy analogy. Dan Stevens, he had like a toy box which was a collection of action figures of the Excellent Men. But it wasn't a complete set because some of them, they weren't current members, or they were off island, or they were dead. And he played with them by getting a new play set, a new background, a new diorama backdrop. And that involved some recontextualization. He recast parts and moved things around. But most of these reinventions wouldn't stand up to deep scrutiny. Another reason I would recommend reading this after is because in the main story, part of the ongoing thing is mystery and intrigue. And we have Cyclist referring to his dark past and his tortured soul. But up front, having it told to you, it robs a lot of the intrigue from them scenes. You didn't really need to see this backstory. For all the problems it causes, you really didn't need to show it. Cyclist, he was captured and he was used as an executioner for muties. There, that is it. Did you see how quick I summed it up? Just have a line of dialogue from Cannonballs or Snowman saying that somewhere in one of the main parts, and save us from this problem-riddled, ugly, extraneous short story. It doesn't really explain where his mask comes from, or why he continues to wear the mask, or even how his eye lasers work with regards to the fact that he is no longer concealing his eyes with a visor. The art for this is all over the place, but now we have some good art for this next one, which is Cannonballs' backstory. And this one is the least problematic of them. Also, this artist here, he does the art for Todd McFarland's Spain. He is the current artist on that. The best Spain artist in a while, I reckon. As I said, this issue, it's placed first in the trade and in that checklist at the back. And Cannonballs getting a story here. This will have helped propagate the myth that Cannonballs is actually a main character in this crossover. But this one, it adheres to the rules of Age of Egg. The only characters we see are Cannonballs and his sister Ush, who were both on the island. We also have these policemen, but as we see with the soldier boys in the main story, Dan Stevens, he can't create generic people like that, but they just quickly start reusing the same faces and the same names. And the plot here is that Cannonballs, Iz and Usher's family, they were all killed off, and we never actually see them. And this is kind of clever in a way. This could be clever if all the other stories hadn't invalidated it. This would be clever writing, because you could argue that they died, and they died off screen because Dan Stevens had no reference point for them. All these stories are written by Michael Lucifer, who writes the main crossover. So the lack of foresight or awareness of the logic is especially annoying. Next up, though, it is Wolfman, and we learn why he is sad and depressed and retired. This is the second best story in here, because there's only 2 problems. It is outside of the bubble. No, wait, there's 3 problems. It is outside of the bubble. It has a character who is outside of the bubble, although this is a very minor Excellent Men baddie called Pandemic. He's making a brief return, which I would applaud in any other circumstances. And finally, this one is even more complicated, because it involves Wolfman and that crappy Joshua Wiedenson character. They cross paths and they share a backstory, and that completely discounts the one possible alternate train of thought with these backstories, which is that Cyclist or Wolfman, they imagined these histories themselves, and they filled in the blanks from their knowledge. Well, that doesn't work now, because we have Wolfman and this woman sharing imagined backstories. There's actually an okay dilemma and idea here. It's not a bad story, it's just a shame it doesn't make sense, or it presents a billion obstacles to justify within Age of Egg. And our last one is maybe the biggest clunker of all. This is Mr. Magnets. It's his backstory, except it's not his backstory at all. It is just a story riddled with appearances of characters who were not on the Excellent Men Island. And the art is by that guy who drew that beautiful New Muties issue. And it's just nowhere near that level. This story is completely pointless. It's just a waste of time. And this guy has a red eye for no reason. And when I was reading this, that really distracted us for a solid 2 minutes. This one, it seems to exist just to tell people what the characters you didn't see in Age of Egg are up to. What is Forg up to? What is Mistake up to? Do you want to know what they were up to in Age of Egg? Note, because they were not in the bubble. They were not in the area of effect. Mistake was just off in the real world, living her regular life, being sexy. And Forg, I think he was dead at this point. there is a team shot to end on. The Excellent Men of Age of Egg. You really didn't need to read this at all to understand or follow Age of Egg. If anything, it makes the ending reveal more iffy. The other two one-shots are even worse than this. As I said at the beginning, you can suspend your disbelief for some of this, or even admit that there is some worth in telling the core stories told here. I didn't recommend this for the reason that it manages to be both pointless and problematic to the main story. The cyclist part, it had awful art. The middle two stories almost work. And then the final story is a waste of time. Even this cover, I normally love Chris Spinello. And this isn't a bad cover, but it just doesn't really grab you or really do Age of Egg justice. Do not read it, or only read it after the crossover, is my opinion, so I give it 7 thumbs up, and we still have some more Age of Egg to come, including an appearance from an official artist who is an overrated act. Speaking of though, this prick who does the cyclist story, he would definitely have been one if that feature continued.